Hello, I'm Fred Sanders, president of the Metropolitan Contemporary Glass Group, the oldest group of glass collectors in the United States, founded in 1983. In fact, some of the MCGG founders were also instrumental in establishing AACG, which has done an amazing job during the pandemic with its various series, keeping the glass art community together all over the world. Thank you, AACG and Marilee Orsini. We will be showing some of the glass-related activity in New York, including some artists, the Heller Gallery, and some collectors. I asked the collectors to focus on items acquired at various SOFA shows. The collectors include Marjie and Larry Pitterman. Larry was the past chairman of Urban Glass. Sharon Karmazin, who is an officer of AACG. Olivia and Harlan Fischer. Harlan was a past head of AACG. And Susan and Fred Sanders. Katya Heller is here to talk about the artists selected for this program. And Doug Heller will take us on a tour of the Heller Gallery. And we'll start off with looking at the Susan Sanders collection.
This photo of us was taken at SOFA 2017 by artist Mary Van Klein for the Documenta project, which is building an archival collection of the contemporary glass movement by photographing artists, gallery owners, and collectors. We're going to be showing some photos of our collection of the past 45 years, which comprises works in all craft mediums, with the emphasis most recently on works in glass. In our entry hall, in addition to early ceramic pieces, on the second shelf from the top, we have two Chihuly Indian blanket cylinders from the 70s. And we have more recent works in glass as well. On the second shelf, we have a vessel by Duncan McClellan, which we bought at SOFA. In our entry area, we've got a SpongeBob by Stephen Paul Day, a large piece by the De La Torre brothers, their interpretation of a contemporary Aztec calendar, two domed pieces by Tim Tate, one a video, and a portrait sculpture of me by Dean Allison. Here it is. Looks kind of like me. Love the way he interpreted my jewelry into glass. Next, okay. In our collection, we own 6 LED stained glass panels by Joseph Cavalieri. These are the 2 in our entryway. We have 2 others in our dining room and living room. These are 2 from our dining room and our living room, and we're going to see a video by Joseph later. The highlight of our foyer is a 2009 hyper-realistic mosaic by Italian artist Andrea Salvador. This was bought at SOFA from Marengo Studio, and beneath it are 3 Hank Murda Adams occupados, which are humorous humanoid figures constructed from tin canisters and glass. Here are 2 large pieces from our den. Jennifer Bueno of North Carolina's piece, Lake Erie Algae Bloom in 2014, which is based on an image from NASA's Earth Observatory, and Amber Cowan's master thesis, Above Jerry. In our dining room, we've got a small piece by Sibel Peretti, 2 more De La Torre brothers pieces, and a Tim Tate video piece, Maybe She Dreams of Rivers. And here it is, a larger picture of it. On our display shelving, we have lots of smaller glass pieces from the 70s to now. Second shelf, we've got an early Marvin Lepofsky, a Rick Allen spaceship, a small Christina Bothwell, Claire Kelly, and most recently, a really nice piece by Allison Siegel and Pam Sabroso, who we're going to see later. And next to that, a piece by Misha Karlsland and Stefan John with the chickens. And on the sideboard is a glass pitchfork by Andy Paco. Next to the shelves on the right, is a sculpture by Chuck Savoy, which we bought at SOFA. On the windowsill on the right is our glass sculpture by Robert Paluski. The large red piece is a neoclassical contemporary collaborative vessel by Jeff Mack and Laura Donifer. And in the corner is Girl on Swing by Australian glass artist Simon Maberly, which we bought at SOFA. Under the Cavalieri panel, we have Still Life with Bowl of Bananas by Beth Lipman, 2012. Here's a close-up of that, apartment sized, unusual. And as you enter our living room, the first thing you see on the right is Marta Klanowska's life-size lemur constructed of broken shards of colored glass, which we saw at Barengo Studios' 2011 Glass Stress exhibition, which was a collateral event of that year's Venice Biennale. The next view is a side view showing lots of glass items along the wall. From the left, there's Mark Pizer piece, a floor sculpture by Rick Beck, and on the shelf, works by Chihuly, Ross Richmond, Beth Lipman, and Seth Randall. Here are some detailed photos of the works in our living room. This is the 2013 Mark Pizer Passage Etude Tableau #1. The next one is Shayna Leib's 18 Movements. This was her master's thesis. And Stephen Powell's piece. This is kind of an iconic piece of his. And here is a non-glass sculpture from SOFA, our Albert Paley coffee table. And above that, a large glass jug by Thurman Statham. Then a large expressionistic portrait of a woman painted in reverse on glass by Gregory Grennan. Under the Grennan piece is a flame-worked and mirrored installation by Mattis Gucci. And on the pedestal, we have a large Laura Donifer sculpture, and in the display case, works by Stephen Duro, Miriam DeFiore, Michael Janis, Raven Sky River, and Allison Kennard. And these are some of our other SOFA purchases. Another non-glass one, fell in love with, Kirsten Stingle, ceramic, Hayden Wilson.
Hayden is a young artist out in working in Asheville, North Carolina.
Marlena Rose, and a close-up of Girl on Swing by Simon Maberly. And now we're going to finish with a short video of all of the jewelry, some of the jewelry that we bought at various SOFAs.
Here are some of the things that we bought at SOFA over the years. These are brooches and lapel pins, and they all happen to be mine, except for the large pin on the right. And if we turn over to, move over to Susan, she'll be demonstrating some of her necklaces.
Okay. So I bought a number of necklaces and other jewelry at SOFA over the years. See two of the great bracelets that I bought. This particular necklace is made out of the fingers of industrial rubber gloves. And this one is glass and fiber. This one is glass, matching earrings also. This one is little glass beads. It's quite beautiful. And this one is, of course, Linda McNeil, and this too has earrings to match. And this is probably the biggest investment and the most spectacular of the necklaces by John Moore of from England. And this one does a lot of things. It's aluminum, and it goes into a variety of positions, and I can take it off and turn it around. It'll do even more things. So we always look forward to going to sofa over the years because we never knew what we would come home with, but it would always be a piece of jewelry.
Hi, Margie and I would like to welcome you to our home. A little bit of background before we start. We fully renovated the apartment when we bought it in 2013 to function as our full-time day-to-day resident, as well as to provide the flexibility, the aesthetic flexibility to enjoy our art. And we've arranged the art to take full advantage of the natural light, as you'll see in the next slides, that the apartment offers. You'll also see in those slides, in the living room in particular, a full large LED television, which we watch literally every day as well. Enjoy.
Coming into the apartment through the dining room, we are looking at the living area and south-facing windows that are both include the west window. And this is really the center of the art in the apartment. This is a fiber piece by Sharon Karmazin. It's actually the inner tube of a tire. Next to that, you have Jeff Zimmerman, Untitled, Martin Moss, which is a bronze piece, and that's captured by a print by Henry Moore. I think it's Mother and Child. This is the title. We acquired that in 1975. Similarly, there's a Vassarelli print, which we acquired in the mid-1970s. And below that, you have Peter Horror's Sphinx. Next to it, of course, and in dialogue with it is Lebinsky-Brektova's Spaces 2. And just below it, Tavita Havia Lure. Moving across the south window, you have Juggler by Martin Janeski. You have Stephen Powell, Persimmon Tier Smith, 1999. Next to that, you have the Matthew Curtis, which we acquired at a sofa in 2012. It's their Xylem series. Livio Seguso, William Morris Standing Stone, Flag by Laura DeSantillana. And then finally you have, you have Lino Tagliapietra's Window and Bertille Valline's Janus 7, Dan Clayman's piece called Mirage, and Jamie Harris's piece, Threaded Infusion Block. On this wall you have Shane Farrow. This is Graham Caldwell, I just acquired a year or so ago. In contrast, next to it you have a Peter Vanderlane that we acquired in 1992. Next to that is Laszlo Lucasi, Rhomboid Vert, which we acquired from Pismo Gallery at a sofa event as well. That was back around 2000. Nick Mount's piece, Black Scent Bottle. And then Martin Blank's Hand of Passion, and Littleton Vogel Bag Explosion, also acquired in the early 1990s. Andy Pecco's Absinthe Fountain, Tanya Lyons. This goes into the kitchen. And in the kitchen we have a few modest little pieces, Greg Nangle, and 2 pieces by Maria Rosine from her Allergens series. There are a bunch of other art in here, what we call kitchen art. You can see up here, that's called cookbook. Teacup, more teacups, and window teacups. On this wall here, you have 2 pieces, Therese Lahay's piece, Silver Green Nocturne, Wang Sante, this is called Window. And these are actually LED lit. This one is. Here you have Drew Smith paint can. This is Ivana Shramkova Watchdog.
Here are the Therese Lahaye and Sante pieces lit as you would see them at night. The Therese Lahaye actually has a is motorized, and the effect is to create almost a water-like image. The Sante is just LED lit, which provides some great light in the evening. This is the Lino, first major piece we acquired at SOFA in 1997 from what was then the Riley Hawk Galleries. Here's another image of the Matthew Curtis, a bit more close up, acquired from Pismo Fine Art, and literally 15 years later. This is the Young Lee segmentation, orange magenta embryo from Dwayne Reed Gallery, and you can see what the natural light does to the orange and magenta segmentation. This is the Lucasi piece that we acquired from Porsche Gallery in 1999. At the same time, we acquired the Lucy Lyons, which is in another room in the apartment, Il Latour, and that was from Porsche Gallery, which was we attended while we were at SOFA.
So this is the dining room against one of the buffets. You have Elizabeth Mears on the top shelf with a Richard Marquis teacup. Below that you have 2 Sidney Cash pieces, a Bernard D'Onofrio, 2 Flo Perkins cacti, another wall piece by Sidney Cash, non-glass, a Beth Littman, of course a beautiful, beautiful Tutzinski. So continuing now, this is Mark Pizer on this side. As we go across to the other side, you have Danny Perkins, Tobias Moll, 2 Black Net, also interior lit, Mary Van Klein. This is a non-glass piece by Paul Russo. It's the art section of the New York Times, blown up in 2015. Weekend edition. And this is By the way, 711, 724 by Matthew Escuque. On this wall, we have a setup around another print that we acquired many years ago, Dance Bijart. You have a Richard Royal on one side, a Dante Marioni from 1998 on the other, and a Christopher Reese in the center. On both walls, you have Shayna Leib's chocolate pieces on one wall and her abstract stuff on the other wall. And as we leave this buffet, we end up with Judith Schechter's Raindrop, which we just acquired.
And here you have a close-up of the Shayna Leib pieces, the Macarona Chocolate and Doma Chocolate, that we acquired from Habitat in 2017. Really sweet, lovely body of work. Piece, this also was Habitat Galleries, which then converted to Karen Echt Gallery somewhat after, a bit after we bought it. This was from Sofa New York, when we had Sofa New York. The last piece also from Karen was the Janusz Walentynowicz. We acquired that from her Chicago gallery, again, in Sofa 2017. So thank you for your time, and we've enjoyed every minute spending it with you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sharon Karmazin. It was lovely for Fred Sanders to ask me to take a little trip down memory lane, since we don't have Sofa in person this year, to think and look at the things that I've gotten from Sofa in the past. As a collector for nearly 30 years, I've been to many Sofas, both in Chicago and in New York. And it's been a wonderful experience because even though I am primarily a glass collector, when you go to Sofa, you never know what you're going to come home with. I picked up this photo when I was in Louisville last year because it so epitomized my philosophy. I love buying art from artists who are still alive because the relationships with artists, collectors, gallery owners are really what makes collecting very special for me. The first piece I'd like to show you is a Thurman Statham ladder. It's in my home in New Jersey. You'll be seeing pieces that are from New Jersey and also some pieces located in Florida. But these are glass pieces that were bought at Sofa. The ladder is one. Next. This is kind of an interesting piece from Heike Breklow. You can see it turns and turns and turns and never falls off its axis. Here's a wonderful Hank Adams piece that actually resides in Florida. And when the sun shines through from the ocean, it lights up, it's on fire. Here's an early Tim Tate piece. It combines glass with video aspects. He has refined these pieces very much since this one, and the electrical part is much more subtly done. This piece is a favorite of mine because I worked with Emily Brock on it for almost a year. It was a commission. It was an interpretation of the library where I was director and worked for over 32 years. Last year was the library's 50th anniversary, and in honor of that anniversary, I gifted the piece to the library, so it's there now for patrons to enjoy. Beyond glass, there are loads of finds that I have come home with. This this Tommy Simpson chair, which is called Oobla Dee Oobla Da, is located in my Florida apartment. Here's a beaded piece, a brownie camera from Sue Wegman. Now, this wall hanging came from Chicago and resided at my home in Long Beach Island, New Jersey. I loved it because it's composed of shells and pearls and beads, and makes a wonderful pattern when you look at it from a distance, and is fascinating to see from up close as well. This bust of a boy by Norma Minkowitz is a fiber piece that I acquired at SOFA years ago. And can you believe this incredible mushroom piece by Amy Gross is made of paper? One of the great things about going to SOFA is getting to meet artists. And here you see Jan Euling, a beadist, and there's her piece, The Pasha, which I acquired at that SOFA. And there's a close-up of it. It's incredible what Jan can do with beads. Every bead hand applied, she can get facial expressions, shading. It's quite extraordinary what her work is. One of the things I love about going to SOFA is finding things from galleries that come from foreign countries. This piece and the piece you see next, both are from Australia, and they were purchased at SOFA. Very, very different. This is a ceramic piece, and the next one is glass. That one too resides in Florida. Now, I am not the only beneficiary of my trips to SOFA, because I have bought things for family members, for loved ones. My son adores dogs. He never met a dog he didn't love. And when I saw this chest, which also doubles as a bench, I thought this would be perfect for him. I always send photographs and see if my kids want what I have thought they would like. And if they say yes, they get it. And this was nice because it came, he came to Chicago from Milwaukee and picked it up, and I got to have a visit with him. The next one went to my granddaughter when she was little. You can see all of these different glass fairy tale characters. They were all nursery rhymes, and they adorned her room when she was little. At the last SOFA, I decided it was time to begin to look at emerging artists who are working in new techniques. And consequently, I came home with 3 pieces by young emerging artists. This one by Matt Satz. This one by Steen Bidstrup. And the last one by Amber Cowan. This magnificent red, yellow, orange piece. Thank you so much for helping me take this trip down memory lane. Hopefully we can all be together at SOFA next year in person.
Olivia and Harlan Fischer couldn't be here for this recording. And I indicated that Harlan is a past president of AACG, and he's also the past president of MCGG. And Harlan did, however, send us some images from his collection of items that were purchased at various SOFA events. Next. This is a piece called Encounter 7 by David Recke. David is a English glass sculptor who does glass casting, and he has a very unique vision of the human condition, as can be seen. And this was purchased in 2015 at the Riley Gallery. This is, I think, one of the best pictures I've ever seen of Laura Donifar, and one of her really great baskets. Laura is, of course, a Canadian artist who is known worldwide, not only for her own work, but for her notorious, unique glass fashion shows. This piece is called Winter Basket. It was bought in 2016 at Habitat Gallery in SoFA, Chicago. This piece is done by Australian artist Matthew Curtis. It's called Amber Blue Floam. And again, this was bought in 2015 at the AACG auction that was held in SoFA, Chicago. He does very large contemporary sculptural work. This piece was done by Michael Janis, who is a director of the Washington Glass School. And he uses this very delicate and complicated sgraffito technique in doing his images, where he uses different color frit, glass frit, to kind of draw the image on the piece. This is called Upon the Wind and the Waters, 2015. And it's a really great piece from SoFA Chicago. This piece is done by Zora Pavlova. It's called Leaf from 2006. And it was bought at the Gallery Corna at SoFA Chicago. Pavlova lives in the Czech Republic, actually not the Czech Republic, Slovakia, the Slovakia part of what was the Czechoslovakia. And her work is, cast glass, and her themes are generally having something to do with the natural world. So this is Leaf. And this is another piece by Pavlova, and it's called Remembrance of the Sea. And it was bought by Harlan and Olivia in 2005 at SoFA Chicago.
Hi, everyone. I'm Katya Heller, and I'm the director at Heller Gallery here in New York City. Thank you, Marilee, and thank you, AACG, for inviting us to present at this presentation for the MCGG and to showcase some of the artists who work with glass as a creative material in their practices. We have selected 5 artists who represent a spectrum of different approaches to the material, and we do not represent all of them, but we thought it would just be interesting for you to see them in various environments and to see their work. So we did some studio visits with them and also have a couple of quick videos. We will start with Joseph Cavalieri. Joseph is an award-winning native New Yorker, artist and educator. His work can be seen in the permanent collection of the Museum of Art and Design and the Leslie Lohman Museum. He has exhibited in the United States and in Europe, and most recently had a solo show at Ivy Brown Gallery in Chelsea in New York. You also saw a Joseph Cavalieri piece in the home tour by Fred and Susan Sanders. Next up is artist Deborah Cheresco. Deborah Cheresco is a New York City-based artist as well. She is best known for her work with glass. She has started with glass in 1987 when she studied at Urban Glass, then the Experimental Glass Workshop, with glassmaker and scholar William Goodenrath. Most recently, though, she is become well known through the Netflix reality TV show Blown Away. And the objects that you will see her making in this video are actually the continuation of the work that she did on the Blown Away final episode. So here we go, Deborah Cheresco.
So what we're working on are these dog chew toys, Twisted Donut and the bone-shaped version. This was dog approved today, the classic model of a dog chew toy, classic dog chew things that are gonna go with my Hunterton piece in January at the Hunterton Museum. Caitlin Vitalo is curating a group show of contemporary glassmakers, and I'm one of the artists that was chosen. A few years ago, I got a residency at the Museum of Glass in Tacoma, where the gaffers there made 4 different dog breeds for me. And I've been thinking a lot about Pavlovian psychology because I studied psychology in undergraduate school and I got a degree in it. And I like how it intersects with art a lot. And was fascinated by the way brains operate and how easy they are to manipulate, which is what we're seeing now in our contemporary political world in the United States, how easy it is to manipulate people with, say, advertising. So way back then, before it was so controversial, I mean, it was always controversial to manipulate people, but people didn't know they were manipulated. So I thought this was a good time to bring this piece to a museum or to the public.
So you said that you made several breeds. What breed have you chosen for this exhibition?
So for the exhibition, there's a Chihuahua. It's the cutest one of all the 4 dogs, and I think I'm going to go with the Boston Terrier because their eyes are looking up as if they're looking to the heavens, and that's where these bones are going to hang, so that the dog is looking at them and getting the stimulus. Okay. The piece is also going to have a pet carrier, glass pet carrier in it. And so that shows entrapment of the animal and control of the animal, additional. But it's all supposed to be not super serious, like done in a humorous way. So to bring these subjects, to combine humor,
Video right now, so
psychology, art, and glassmaking especially.
Wow, seems like this installation is going to have it all.
So now I'm working on a residency at the Urban Glass Contemporary Art Center. Urban Glass in Brooklyn on another residency. So the timing's really good for completing this project. Now we're going to go to the Marber, shape it up. Some really basic techniques to sculpt with. I'm going to cool the stick now by dunking it in that bucket of water, kind of even out the temp. And it's really good if I have a little extra texture on this because good dog food isn't just a pristine thing. Okay, great. Now we're going to curve it back to make that bones. Flip. This is where the artistry comes in. Okay, we better not take it too far because we can break this off. Oh, wow. Let's twist this one. I wonder if dogs like it better when it's twisted. So now all we need to do is heat this end. And then bring that in. So spend your time heating that in. The tricky part of this piece is that a lot of times the cane, when you're trying to knot it, it will break. So I've got a couple laying on the floor. Because I was pushing size, scale. So let's choose a nice place. How about there? And flip. I'm going to push it on over here. I'm going to watch it pull out a little bit. Both sides. Ready? It's still a little hot in the middle. We got this one. It's interesting. These are like a good combination of control and chaos. I'm really liking the way this is looking. I'm gonna bring some more. Pushing pretty hard, honestly. Okay. I think that's done.
I wanted to just ask one other question, and that is you have one other animal related piece currently on view at the exhibition in Venice at the Stanza del Vetro. Can you just quickly describe that for everybody?
At the Stanza del Vetro, I have a series of animal feet, which are pretty large pieces where I sort of dissect the animal and make them into these. I call them it's called Stampede, the series, but its nickname for me is endangered animals. And it's basically they're like these huge, massive ghost parts of the animal. So they're so present and not present. And it really is talking about the transient nature of life on this planet, especially big animals like that humans have a lot of control over. So it's supposed to be this very poetic statement. I always want to combine like high technique and crafting and laboring as part of the concept. And so I try to get a high sense of mastery within the piece as part of the concept, but really they're supposed to be existing as these almost ghost-like beings that are just tentatively existing in life. And they're just supposed to be beautiful too. Like I don't mind that glass is a beautiful medium, and I really like bringing that out.
Well, thank you so much. It was so nice to see you working again at Urban, and great to see you working on this installation. We will keep an eye on the show at the Hunterdon so that we can perhaps suggest that people go see it there, since maybe fewer people will be able at this point to go to Venice. The next artist whose work we will see after we saw Deborah Tresco making the chew toys for her installation at the Hunterdon Museum at Clinton, New Jersey, is going to be Norwood Viviano. Norwood is somebody who is not based in New York. He's in fact based in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He is a native of Detroit. He has worked with tools of mapping and materials of industry, ceramics, glass, steel, computer-aided modeling, and rapid prototyping to investigate the relationships between industry, population change, and the development of American cities. He first explored the subject in a series that's called Mining Industries. It uses transparent cast glass to describe changes to the landscape caused by the growth and/or collapse of industries over the last century. The interesting thing is he's made pieces about many cities in the United States, but it has been extremely difficult for him to make a piece about New York, or in which New York would feature, because he was not able to obtain the data. And this video is a conversation I had with him just last weekend about how he finally got to do that. Here is the video on Norwood. I'm ready. Hi, everybody. I'm here with Norwood Viviano on a Zoom call today on Saturday, November 8th, 7th. And we are going to talk about Norwood's work and its relationship to pieces that he is making about New York City.
I've been working on a series, Mining Industries, for about 6 years now as an artist. I'm an artist that explores several different projects at once, but they tend to have thematic relationships. In the Mining Industries series, the project isn't really about the mining industry. It's about looking at the landscape and the transformation of the landscape over time in relationship to industry. These two pieces that are based on Manhattan, one lower Manhattan piece and one midtown Manhattan piece, use digital 3D modeling technology as well as traditional kiln casting technology. And within the Mining Industries project, I've done projects related to close to a dozen cities. I use LiDAR, which is a infrared light detecting and ranging technology. So airplanes fly over cities, bounce lasers off of the landscape and then capture that into a 3D model. I usually acquire that data from the county or the city and then turn it into a 3D model that can then be cast in glass. And so this is a detail of Lower Manhattan. And if you look closely, you can see in the water is some of the 3D print layering. And so some of the process sort of ties into the way that I want the landscape to read as well.
Can you tell us a little bit about why do you think it took so long for you to acquire the LiDAR for New York, or the type of LiDAR for New York that you were interested in?
There's always a little bit of a challenge when you're working with working on a project and it's a major city. In New York and Washington, DC, and several other cities, it's a security risk to release the LiDAR. So I've been working to acquire the LiDAR for New York City for close to 6 years, and it just became available recently. And so once I convert the LiDAR data, which is essentially large scale point clouds, I 3D print those files, and on the left is a 3D print of Lower Manhattan, and on the right is a rubber mold that I made from the 3D print. I then worked fairly traditionally with wax and work with lost wax casting. So I'm setting up this 3D printed wax version that came out of the rubber mold, and I have styrofoam kind of foam around the outside of it, because this with glass casting, you have to heat your molds evenly and cool your molds evenly. So what I'm doing here is I'm setting up essentially a system so that when I pour my plaster investment in, I get essentially a 2-inch mold all the way around this wax. And so this is the finished version of Lower Manhattan. And just a couple of things to note, this has 3 layers of glass stacked on top of one another. And there's a mirror underneath that is the same perimeter as the glass piece. And sandwiched between the layers of glass is an aerial photograph from 1966, which shows the transformation of Lower Manhattan from essentially 1966 to about 2018. This is the representation of the aerial photograph. And so you really see the transformation of Lower Manhattan, obviously in the World Trade Center site, but also kind of in the Battery Park area as well, and lots of other areas of Lower Manhattan.
This is the new Freedom Tower, the tall structure?
The tallest building is the Freedom Tower, correct. And the other project that I completed recently for New York City is a project based on Midtown Manhattan. And so this is cast in wax, obviously, before it's cast in glass. The process is lost wax castings. This is the cast Midtown Manhattan, but you're really looking through the bottom of the piece. It took about 2 days to remove the mold material because it was such a complex casting. And then it's, a week or two of kind of cold working and finishing before the piece is done.
For your upcoming show in March at our gallery, are you thinking of doing a New York piece in that series?
I am working on a piece for the recast series, and that will be essentially Manhattan sitting on a stack of newspapers. Yeah, this is the Midtown, and so this is looking from a different point of view. So you're sort of looking, you're sort of in the southeast, looking towards the north west across Manhattan, and you can see I think probably the most distinctive building in the foreground would be the Empire State Building with that large antenna on top. There is an aerial photograph that is reflected in the mirror below. This aerial photograph is also from 1966, and so this shows really dramatic changes, certainly on the west side of this kind of perimeter. There's significant changes, but again, you have you know, the references I talked about before, you know, Bryant Park and the Empire State Building and the Chrysler Building over here. The thing that I think is interesting about this data in lots of ways, I think, you know, these aerial photographs, you know, in 1966, we had really different technology. But I think that these are pretty high resolution and they tell a really important, significant story about New York. And I think that that story becomes even richer when you combine it with a more contemporary version of that landscape.
Thank you so much. And we will talk again soon.
Okay, thank you,
Thank
Katya.
you. Thank you. So after we saw Norwood, whose work is about New York, but who is not a New Yorker, the next artist is Erica Rosenfeld. Erica is a New Yorker. She works out of Urban Glass. She's a graduate of Kenyon College. And she is a co-founder of a performance collective called Burned Asphalt Family. Erica's work has been shown at the Corning Museum of Glass, at the Chrysler Museum of Glass, at the Museum of Arts and Design, and other public institutions around the country. Her hybrid artistic practice centers on the performative, sculptural, and social aspects of glass and food making. And she is also very well known as a jewelry designer. In this short video, she takes us to her studio where she shows us both her jewelry and her current work. Hi everyone, I'm here with Erica Rosenfeld, who is in her studio, and she will show us what she is working on right now. Erica, it's Saturday right now. Tell us where you are and what you're working on.
Well, I'd like to start with hello on this glorious day for democracy. I am in a small space in my house that has sort of served as a hangout room, but also a place for me to hang work as I'm finishing it, and also right as it finishes, right when it's finished, so that I can think about it before it leaves the house. So I thought I'd take you around and show you a couple pieces in progress and some finished work, art and jewelry. These are some new finished paintings. I call them strange creature paintings, and they're acrylic on canvas, but a lot of them are embellished with glass details like crystals and glass marbles and pearls. These are glass beads, and I call them strange creature paintings. And I started this body of work about 4 years ago when I saw many similarities to the political climate of the early 1950s. And I'd also had a long time fascination with paint by numbers as a genre. And I also found it very fascinating that they were invented the same year as McCarthyism and the House of Un-American Activities. Here's an original template that adults were given paint to color in, and artists and designers were hired to create these templates. And I sort of see them as a window into the culture of the early 1950s well, let me show you, this is an original as well.
Mm-hmm. And is that an original that you painted, Erica, or that you got already painted?
No, I collect them as well. I have about 8 of original ones, so this is one of them.
I see.
And then I can show you just some in progress. This is part of my Strange Deer series, and she's peacock deer, and she's sitting on a lot of rhinestones, and she has a mushroom next to her. Here's her friend cheetah deer and tree deer. These are glass beads as well.
Nice.
This is deer tower. And then stork deer, who has blown glass and pearls and marbles embellished for her hill. And then here's some more finished ones. Mushroom dog, one of my favorites. Crystal storks. This is an older piece. It's a glass cloud.
Right, and that glass cloud is actually, it's interesting, we're seeing it kind of on a green background here, but it in fact has a little bit of like a very light jadeite green, right?
And then here's some jewelry. Most of my jewelry is made out of glass, and either glass that I fuse or blow, and then I carve it and sew it together. It's very inspired by mid-century modern jewelry, which is a love of mine. And this is sometimes I use Bakelite, and this is a Bakelite poker chip for the class.
The one that's in the red tray is Bakelite?
Just the clasp and a couple pieces on it.
Okay.
Yeah, the rest of it's glass.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you pick the colors for the jewelry? Those are made as almost like Marini, right?
Yeah, these are fusings, and then these are Marini. I tend to use the same color palette often, and I just change the patterns a lot. It's really just about the color. I love playing with color and trying to maybe sometimes fit colors together that I don't always normally see together. But these are just some of my favorite color combinations.
And if somebody wanted to purchase these in New York, let's say, where would a good place be?
Well, they're sold at the Urban Glass store in Brooklyn, and then Museum of Art and Design in Manhattan.
That's good. And you're wearing one of your necklaces also?
I'm wearing a new one. I was able to go back to the glass studio in June after quarantine in Brooklyn, and I was able to start making new glass. And this is a new piece.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing this with us, though, and for sharing the work that you have been doing now lately in the sort of at the end of the tunnel. Hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you for asking. Feels good.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
And the next, after we saw Erica's necklaces, the next very short video and the last one is going to be about a collaboration between two of the youngest artists in the field who we represent. There are two women. Their names are Pamela Sabroso and Allison Siegel. And they had a residency, the first residency after the reopening at Urban Glass, which has been mentioned here several times now. And there were one of the pieces that we are going to see in here, the psychedelic corn smut, is going to be featured in an exhibition that has been postponed because of COVID, but it's a major exhibition was originally planned for 2020, but it's going to be opened in 2021. This is the catalog written by Glenn Adamson, the former director of the Museum of Arts and Design and curator and art historian. The exhibition Objects USA 2020 remembers the 50th anniversary and celebrates the 50th anniversary of a seminal exhibition. I'm going to just quickly read one sentence from his introduction where he says, "It has been 50 years since Objects USA introduced the public to the artists of the burgeoning American studio craft movement. Across the country, something was brewing in the studios of makers who were working with ceramics, glass, wood, fiber, and metal, among other materials. Theirs was a new approach to art making by way of traditional craft media." And he notes that that original exhibition brought together 500 works by 308 artists. I believe that there won't be that many artists or objects in the 2020 exhibition, but the work by Pamela Sabroso and Allison Siegel, as well as work by another artist from the studio glass movement, Amber Cowan, who was that last red piece that Sharon Karmazin showed in her presentation, will both be featured in that exhibition, which will open at the end of January here in New York City at R & Company. And here's the short video on Pam and Allison. All right, here we are with two more pieces that you have recently finished or are close to finishing. Are they finished? Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about them a little bit. What are they? Who are these guys? This one is called Psychedelic Corn Smut. Okay. And it has corn on it. And it has all these mushrooms coming out of it and psychedelic, I thought, just because of the colors and its wild hairdo and the spiral patterns. And what is a corn smut? Corn smut is it's actually a fungus that grows on corn. Oh, so corn smut is a real thing. And it's called something in Spanish, right? Yeah, it's called huitlacoche. Oh, huitlacoche. And don't you eat, isn't that something that people eat? Yes, very good. So it's almost like a fungus, like a mushroom type fungus. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it was a good name for this piece. All right. And then what about this one? This one actually has several parts, so can we show people what's the parts of the book? All right. So we've got sort of a blown piece that was made probably a few years ago, and then this part Pam made at Corning, and the texture is rice. And then the top part is an egg that was made at Wheaton Arts in I think 2015 or 16. And we've had it for a while and never could figure out what to put on it as far as what fiber. And so we finally figured out the hair and that they sort of go together. And it reminds us of a Fabergé egg. So it's probably going to be called something to do with a hairy Fabergé egg. Okay, sounds perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
Hello and welcome to Heller Gallery, where our current two exhibitions really expose the two extremes of what glass can be used for by talented artists. Right now, we're looking at the work of Joanna Manousis. Joanna's work is truly dazzling, very jewel-like in its quality, highly reflective. The piece we're studying right now is mold blown. The interiors have been mirrored and it reflects the surrounding light. In fact, some of the color you're seeing in that piece is being taken from other pieces in the gallery and reflected. As we move down the wall to Indra's web, you see the modular approach that Joanna takes. The pieces speak to an ancient legend about a goddess, and the universe and constellation we see are her disciples, showing that each one of us is part of something greater. These pieces really are highly mirrored, polished, and cut. Then as we continue down, we see another one of Joanna's pieces, which offers the alternative of various settings. It can be set as we're seeing it, or they can be arranged into a tighter circle. These pieces have been hot sculpted glass. They pull in the light and radiate brilliance. She works out of the Midwest. She is originally from Great Britain, and she is on her way soon back to Great Britain to work on her PhD. This is an example of a different approach in form. These are cast bottles, cut and polished, emulating traditional bottles, but with a symbol of a golden rope running through it. Again, showing the concept that we are all connected to something greater. Joanna's work is indicative of what many of the younger artists in the field are doing. They represent a high level of technical achievement, but also carry messages with them. And that's part of what the gallery always seeks to find with an artist. Somebody whose work has a visceral appeal, but also an intellectual appeal. Now, as we rescan this room, keep in mind oh, sorry, that's cut. Now we're looking at the work of Australian sculptor Mel Douglas. Mel takes a diametrically opposed perspective on what glass can be. Her work is quiet, contemplative, minimalist. As you see in the center of the room on the tables, there are three-dimensional forms. But on the back wall, the amber and black piece are silhouettes, cast glass, thick and solid, that have then been hand etched very delicately to show an impression of three-dimensionality. Mel's work is also done on a two-dimensional approach. The framed piece on the wall is one of a series that she calls a glass drawing, where an exceptionally fine screen is made out of powders of glass. Again, she's exploring the idea of two forms juxtaposed. This example is another one of the silhouette series. When there are two pieces, two objects together, they can be rearranged into an almost infinite variety of compositions. Mel, like Joanna, is indicative of the new generation of glass artists. Again, technically skilled, but also very intellectual in the approach. Mel has just received her PhD in Australia in glass studies, and this exhibition, which we think is a particularly cohesive one, is all about the possibilities of using glass and drawing. Three-dimensional shapes, she considers drawings in space, and she then also works on the objects themselves. Restrained, cool, very contemplative work. In addition to Mel and Joanna, we have other artists on display in the gallery. Right now, we're looking at a sculpture by Matthew de Perez, which takes the idea of recycling refuse, of detritus. What he's done here is taken cast plaster sheets, cracked them, rearranged them, and then laid glass on top of them, which then takes the impression of the broken plaster. After that's been put together in a kiln, the glass is mirrored and then wall mounted. The pieces, like the work of Joanna, plays on glass's ability to reflect and take light beautifully. To the right of it, we're coming up on a massive piece by perhaps the greatest artist to ever work with glass, the Czech husband and wife team of Stanislav Lebensky and Jaroslava Brichtova. This piece was inspired years ago when they were visiting New York, and we went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art and went into the ancient art division, and we're looking at military helmets from Grecian times. Piece has a quiet authority, and it also has an enormous physical presence. We are looking at something that weighs over 400 pounds. The Lebensky set a standard that nobody else has quite reached yet. And they, I believe, are truly the most important people to work with glass. Other artists such as Dale Chihuly have collected their work, and numerous museums around the world own them. Then to the right of the Lebensky piece is a classic example of another great maestro's work. That's Lino Tagliapietra. This is a piece entitled Dinosaur. It's illustrative of how the hot glass moves, the fluidity, plasticity of it, and then how it can be frozen in a particular shape. Lino, like the Lebenskys, has been an inspiration to several generations. At 86, he is still active and working. Thank you for visiting with us today. We hope you've all enjoyed the brief tour.